Okay, welcome by this series where I will have a look at videos that Paul Smith made. Paul Smith was a user of Softimage, and when ICE came back out, ICE was Interactive Creative Environment, which is a node-based programming language within Softimage, and it's basically what geometry nodes now is for Blender. Back then, no one really made video tutorials, so I think everyone that have worked with ICE have seen his tutorials, I guess, and I really liked the things that he did back then. Like, yeah, I was always happy when a new video came out. I have to say, like, I'm not a great Blender geometry node user, like I'm very new to it, and it's just that I thought trying to convert what he did in ICE is a nice way to learn geometry nodes, because I'm left there with a challenge where I can't look further in the video because this video is not in Blender, and yeah, it's just an interesting idea. So yeah, this is what this series is about. Also, fuck Autodesk for buying Softimage and killing the product. Yeah, Softimage is way better than 3D Studio Max or Maya or them combined. So yeah, I sent Paul an email, like if he was okay with it, that I remade his videos from like 11 years ago, and he told me in the email, in his reply, that he still uses Softimage from a day-to-day basis, and yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's have a look at the first video that we will cover. Okay, in this first video, he makes a simple deformer. It's basically like the shrink wrap from Blender. I will show you a little piece.
Do that. There you go. Number 2 has jumped to the location, the nearest, closest location on number 1. So that's a very simple deformer.
Okay, that will be one of the things I will recreate. I also will show something now that he does later on, and at this point it's not possible to do that in Blender, unfortunately. So yeah, here that is.
Deformer. Now, because it's just jumped to the nearest location without any real intelligence, it's ended up being a bit, the mesh is sort of a bit zigzaggy here and there. Let me show it on a shaded view. And okay, you can see here that it's not very smooth, so we can smooth that out. But basically what we're going to do for that is I'll get the point neighbors. So get neighbors. The point positions here need to be, basically this is like a bunch of, each point has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or so neighbors, so we need to get the average of that, of them all, which we'll do get array average, and then set the point position to the average of all of the neighbors, and there. So it jumps it. Let me just hide the first one so you can see it clearer. So without that,
okay, I'm not going to point out all the difference, but like here he is using a repeat node in the next upcoming seconds, and something like that in Blender would be really useful, because right now when you repeat something, you just have to like make a group out of it, repeat the group, and it's annoying, and also it's hard to say how many times you want to repeat in Blender, like control that with an integer. It's probably possible by doing some logic, but yeah, still it would be terrible. So here it is.
so I can do this a few times. So it's going to repeat this whole procedure on this side as many times as I like. So, and you can see that each time it smooths it out a little bit more. So say for example I'm quite happy with that as my final deformer.
Okay, the last thing that he does that I think is interesting to show is he made a deform operator out of his tree. Um, so right now he will remove the node tree from the sphere, and then he will exit it through the deform menu. It's a bit like how you have certain operators in the Blender menu, so let's have a look.
Sorry, off this sphere object. So it has nothing on it at the moment. So I go deform, shrink tester. Now it's got a picking session. I pick that and it shrinks down to it, and this iteration thing comes up.
Okay, let's create a thing in Blender now. First, I want to point out, if you go to Edit Preferences, Add-ons, you can type in Wrangler, which is a plugin I have enabled, and basically every node tutorial has it enabled, so I recommend enabling that. Okay, so let's go to the geometry nodes, so we get this layout. I remove the cube, pressing X. I Shift A to add a UV sphere, press C to go to wireframe, press F2 to name this one. I Shift D to duplicate, Escape to get it back to its origin. S to scale, F2 to name this one, and we name this one 2. And on this one we will add a node. We drag in 1, and we want to get the positions of this one, and we use relative as well so we can move it. And instead of get closest location, we need to use the proximity node. Get close location, it was called in ICE, in case I confuse you. And we will add a set position and use this here. And now it shrink wraps to the 1, and let me rotate, then it becomes a bit more obvious. Okay. So that's basically the shrink wrap thing. The averaging that Paul did, where every point is averaged to its neighbors, we can do that. Like we have a neighbor thing, but it only gives us how many vertices a certain point has, for example. So it's not useful for us. So that's basically where it stops. What we can do though is make a tool out of it. So right now the object we shrink wrap to is hard coded. What we can do is connect it here, and now we can choose from here what our input is. And also as a bonus, so this has nothing to do with Paul's video, let's say we want to shrink wrap to 2 different spheres. We can't use 2 objects here, because as far as I know, actually that might be possible. Now thinking about it, because we can use a join geometry, and this is not the way I'm going to do it, but I will show it anyway. So here let me change this one to sphere. Okay, and I use this for sphere. Okay, so now it's shrink wrapping to those 2 objects, but let's say if we want a third one, then we have to keep repeating this, which is not a nice way to do it. So what we can do instead is remove this and Shift A, search for collection info, and we can add a collection. Also, let me remove that. So if you press N, you get the N panel. We can go to group and get rid of rid of that. Okay, so let me drag in a collection, and at the moment those 2 spheres are in the default collection. So I select them, press M, new collection, I call it AB. And we go back to number 2, where our node tree lives, and set this to relative and choose our collection, and now we get a warning. It would be nice if that would show up here, but it doesn't. Instances in input geometry are ignored, so what we have to do is realize the instances. I can't really explain why, but it's just something I happen to know. So now we can see this is working, and the nice thing is we can just keep adding things to this collection and it will work. And let's also make that we can choose if we want an object or a collection, because our sphere thing is now not used at the moment. So what we can do is add a switch, and based on the switch we will choose which one we use. So if it's false, we use the object, for example. If it's true, we use the collection. So now we can switch, and for the object, let me set this to 1 like we had in the beginning. So we have that, and we can use the switches in output. I move it up because it makes more sense, and we name it use collection is what makes sense, I think, because the collection is 1 now. Yes, so that basically concludes it for this video. I hope you liked it.